Man, this is Deion Dawkins, man. You're listening to The Scoop on OurScoop.com. You already know.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to The Scoop, OurScoop.com's weekly podcast. We are on to episode 18 of season 10. I am OurScoop.com editor John DeCarlo. We have a full house once again with Kyle Gauss, Johnny Zwizlak, and Declan Landis. And it's going to be another busy episode. We've got a lot to talk about. The Temple football head coach search is in its early stages. As you know, we had a lot of good responses to our emergency pod on Sunday when the news broke. We'll, of course, be talking more about what could potentially be next for the Owls. And if you're a Temple basketball fan, you're now aware, especially by the time that this podcast comes out, that Pete Thamel and David Purdom put out a story earlier this afternoon reporting that federal authorities are investigating Hysier Miller and whether the former Temple point guard bet on his own games and I'm reading from the article here, manipulated the outcome of Owls games he played in. So we'll talk about that more in the mailbag. And we can't have a normal day around here, guys.
No, definitely not.
Have a normal day.
You should get one of those boards on the back of your office, like days since shit happened.
We can write it on the whiteboard.
Those erase it every now and then.
Put it on the whiteboard. We'll talk women hoops as well. And a little bit about the Temple UTSA game coming up on Friday. We had the chance to talk to Everett Withers and a couple of players this week, just about what life is like for them in these last two games. Obviously, Temple is coming off a win. Best they can do is get to 5 wins. But some interesting comments nonetheless from interim head coach and the former defensive coordinator from the Owls, Everett Withers. And we'll get to all of your mailbag questions as well. The Scoop, as it always is, it's brought to you by Greenspan and Greenspan Injury Lawyers. If you've been injured while on the road on the highway and the crash was someone else's fault, the insurance company is not going to be on your side. You need us. Temple Law grads will fight hard to get the compensation that you deserve. We only get paid if we win, so in Pennsylvania or New York, call us today at 215-261-7359. That's 215-261-7359. And you can find them on the web at greenspans-law.com. That's greenspans-law.com. I should note that two of our other staff members, Ryan Mack and Colin Schofield, are hanging out here, just shadowing us. You're going to be hearing more from them in the future. We love them both. I'm occasionally going to start laughing because, you know, I can see their facial expressions in the background. They're going to be with us here on or around this date, Declan. You said it's a special?
This is a special
week?
edition because, you know, I figure we shake it up. You know, we've done a lot of the on this date. You know, we haven't done a lot of around this date. Okay. So
real quick, can I say this while I'm thinking of it? We're going to try to don't pout. Relax.
Damn it.
Do you think we're going to squeeze in an episode early next week with more Thanksgiving talk?
Sure, if you want to.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I'll be free
Okay.
at some point.
All right.
I got to schedule my haircut around it though. So let me know.
I mean, how long is your haircut going to take?
Well, you'd be surprised. Anyway, so you know, those
Declan's going skin fade, just right on the side.
You know, if it wasn't my graduation in less than a month, I would.
Would
your
family be upset if you got a taper fade?
If I got a taper fade,
Yeah.
not a chance my family knows what that is.
But if you got one, would they be upset?
I don't know. I don't know what to think.
Ryan and I had a lovely conversation last week about hair dye, so we'll talk about that later.
Yeah, all right. Didn't see that part in the script. Anyway,
It's not in the script.
so as I mentioned, we've done a lot of on this date episodes on this show. Now it's time for the around part of that title. Okay. Dante Wright's 14 catches Saturday were the second most by.
No. Do not do this.
I was going to say,
If you
get
bring
ready.
up bring up your pre-FBS
Kyle,
1913, they're chucking rocks HR stats.
Kyle?
Step off my turf. Step
Kyle?
off my turf. You're thumbing through a
Kyle?
media guide with your finger going down, going, oh, 14 is more than 13, and thinking you can compete with me. No,
Kyle?
no, Declan.
I knew this was going to.
Dante Wright's 14 catches
No.
Saturday were the second most by a Temple player in a game in the FBS era, and the most since Clint Graves' 15 catches against Rhode Island in 1972. However, he wasn't the only Temple player to hit this mark, because around this date, on November 2nd, 1968, Temple wide receiver Jerry Laviglio had 14 catches for 209 yards in the Owls' 50-40 loss to Buffalo. He holds the pre-FBS record for most catches in a game in Temple's history. So today, gentlemen, I will be asking you to guess facts about this American-style football contest from before each of us was born.
No, I'm done with this.
You've upset everybody.
Question number one.
I'm loving this. I'm loving this.
Is this what you prepared? Like you spent your effort preparing this?
I wrote a script.
You know what's happened since Dante Wright's performance?
I
Let
know.
alone everything
I
that's
don't
happened since
want
the
to
Buffalo
talk
game.
about it. Okay, that's the rest of
Are
the
you
podcast.
disassociating? Is this your way of disassociating?
What if it is?
We've got so much other complicated
I've got,
stuff
like,
to get to, and we're already
2 episodes left, guys. All right, let me have this. Okay.
so loud.
You want me to just scroll Britannica? Is that what you want?
So loud. I don't know why you're yelling.
Question number 1.
Oh God.
Temple's quarterback had 5 passing touchdowns against the Bulls. Part 1 is who was it?
Part 1 is it wasn't even University of Buffalo. What was the name of their school?
It was University of Buffalo, from what I said.
It was
SUNY
not. It was
Buffalo.
Buffalo State, I believe.
Buffalo State.
Either
I
way,
believe.
What year
The
was
Bulls.
this again?
1968.
Uh,
3 years
you're-
before the FBS. era.
Kevin Arnold.
No,
State
you're gonna get a lot
University
of
College
unknowns.
at
this guy,
Buffalo.
one of the premier quarterbacks of Temple history, according to the record book.
If they played prior to 1971, not even on my radar.
John Waller. Part 2 of that question, he had 5 touchdown passes. How many went to Laviglio?
3.
0.
4.
0. Correct.
Yes.
Well done, Johnny.
Yes.
Question number 2. Waller had 440 passing yards that fateful afternoon en route to a pre-FBS program record for passing yards and completions in the 1968 season. How many completions did the team have?
I
I will not be deterred. I will not be deterred
sending
by
red
your
bull-
nonsense.
Kyle's sending floating red
I will not
balloons
be
and rocket
deterred by your
ships.
nonsense.
Now little poop emojis. I am more entertained by this in your question. I'm so sorry. Who was it? Jerry Laviglio?
Hey, Declan, you know
I'm
what
going
this
to
line of
quit this.
questioning makes me feel like?
This
This
my
is what it
last
makes me
episode.
feel like, Declan.
This is my last. Yeah, well done. The audio podcast. Yeah, that joke's really gonna land
It's
for
death.
our audio.
Makes me feel like death.
Unreal. This is my last episode.
What was the
You guys want to take the microphone? I'm done.
okay, what was the question again?
How many completions did they have in 1968's pre-FBS program record?
It doesn't matter what you guess because they were guessing at the stats. That's why they cut this.
Perfect.
That's why they cut it off in 1971. It's pre that. It was just some
then
guy
why
on the
can't you
sideline
guess?
saying
What's
that
the
looks like
problem here?
48 yards.
What's the problem here? Why can't you guess? You
Ding.
know what I'm saying? Let's see it.
What was the question?
Jesus Christ. 199 completions, okay? Program record pre-FBS. Number 3. Yeah, you know what?
TJ
We're
Warner
just
had
gonna
that in like
skip
2
to the end.
games.
We're going to skip to the end. They had 4 records as a team. Can you name one other team they beat in 1968?
Bucknell.
Buffalo was 7-3. Name one other team they beat.
Bucknell.
No.
Delaware.
Delaware. Great answer.
Hofstra.
Hofstra not on there.
Boston College.
Boston College not on there. By the way, fun fact about this game, Buffalo had a 22-0 lead.
That is a fun fact.
Super fun. So much fun.
Final question. The Inquirer's Jack Chevalier was at the game and wrote a story for Sunday morning edition of the paper. He later coined a term for a famous group of Philadelphia athletes. What was the nickname he created?
Broad Street Bullet.
Broad Street
Broad Street
Bullies.
Bullies. And that was around this date.
You got nothing.
Last one ever.
You want to start over?
Last
you
one
want
ever.
to just
Don't get used to it.
like you go, you take a lap around the sack, you think of things that happened on or around November 22nd, and you come back on this.
I'm tired.
I missed the trivia,
tired.
man. I like.
Yeah,
can't-
like I was
tired.
excited for that. I wanted to hear about who was born on this
I
date.
tried to give you trivia. I tried.
I was
tried to-
looking
And
for,
I'm
like,
always
maybe
into it.
I tried to be unique, you know?
Which Billy Idol song came out on this day?
Then you do it. You know what I'm saying? Then you do it.
Why are you so
You do
angry?
it. Because I put a lot of time and effort into this.
Hey, you read one box score.
3 hours of finding the Sunday recap to find the box score.
You know how long that would
I don't want to
First of all-
hear it.
First of all, that actually take you 3 hours.
It did take me 3 hours.
Have you ever been to newspapers.com? You can find it in
You have
one.
to pay for a
second.
subscription.
You get a
because it was
7-day
2
free
pages.
trial. You get a 7-day free trial, and not to expose your business model, newspapers.com. You can just give them a new email address. I
That's
do
insane.
it all the time.
That's insane. I love journalism too much. I had to
I'm
go to
also
the
pretty
Temple
sure you
Library.
get access. I'm pretty sure you get access to the Inquirer database via Temple for free.
Okay, that was just what I was about to say. The Inquirer database did not have it. I had to go through the Temple libraries that had a copy of it. It was 765 pages. I had to wade through. It was on
You
page
could have just texted me. I
437.
would have had that in your hand in 3 minutes.
Kyle
Yeah.
was there, man.
I guess so. Look, that's great. Good for you.
Are you
I'm-
a
On or
little-
around this
this
date,
is-
November
this
22nd,
is my
this
final
quarterback was later drafted by the Denver Broncos just because he was tall.
Wait, no,
He was
give me
born.
the date again.
Sorry. He was born on this date in 1990. He was later drafted by the Broncos because he was tall.
Was it Osweiler?
It was Osweiler.
There you go, Declan.
Unfortunately, he has his mic
He
unplugged.
literally unplugged his mic. He took apart his mic in protest. I think it's because Colin and Ryan are here, and iron sharpens iron, and you're not responding well to increased competition in the room. Oh,
Here he comes plugging the mic in.
Then bring them on.
That's what I got.
Have them take my microphone.
It's all about
What
we got to
else do
sharpen
I
each other's
got?
tools here.
Yeah, that's your prerogative.
Okay.
I'm not participating. in
Your
that.
prerogative.
Now we got singing on or around this date.
What else we got, Kyle?
I'm looking. I'm not spending 3 hours on it, though. I can tell you that much.
That's
I'm
unfair.
just looking through names.
He
I don't
showed
care about-
dedication. I'm proud of him. He worked really hard to find that, put a good script together.
I wish I could just have taken that level of effort and focused on something else. Like it could have been really productive.
We
What
love
would you suggest other than that? I feel like that was very productive. It was very.
What
love
has
you. I don't know
happened
about your
since
problem.
the last time there's
Well,
been
we're going to talk
an
about that.
NCAA
We're gonna talk about that
investigation
for the rest of the podcast.
there's been all things that he could have focused on.
I think he was trying to do something funny to take our minds off it.
He did this entirely because I texted him on Saturday being like, hey, we don't really count stats before 1971. And for whatever reason, that really riled him up and he decided to focus his energy on that.
He said that's true.
So
Which I was there. I can attest. He was he was a
he
little
just-
upset.
He just somberly said, "It's true." Into the
And then
on
he sips
this
his
date,
coffee.
1984, this actress, who was later married to Ryan Reynolds, was born. Not going to be who
No.
you think.
No, it wasn't Blake Lively. Who did he marry first?
She's now in her third marriage. He was her first.
I
Oh.
know this, but I don't know it right now.
She would later go on to star in movies such as Lost in Translation, The Prestige, and The Avengers.
The Avengers?
She is Scarlet.
Ooh.
Wait, no, sorry,
Oh,
not
Scarlett
Scarlet Knight.
Johansson?
I'm sorry, she's not Scarlet Knight. She's what does Scarlett Johansson play in in The Avengers?
Black Widow.
Black Widow.
So
I gave away her first name by saying
Scarlet-
she was going to be a Scarlet Witch, but she's not the Scarlet Witch.
Scarlett Johansson and Ryan Reynolds were married.
Yeah, they're married for
Wow.
4 years.
Oh wow, I didn't know that.
All right, let's rock and roll.
A lot of stuff to get to. Actually, before we get to all of the stuff that has kept us super busy this week, I want to give a shout out to Temple volleyball player Sydney Jones, who was named the American Athletic Conference's Freshman of the Year. Taylor Davenport also finished first team All American Athletic Conference. So, Declan, I know you've written some stuff about the Temple women's volleyball team.
That's true. I actually added the Taylor Davenport part
Yes,
to
you
this.
did. So I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Sydney Jones is the daughter of former NBA player, Sixer, last name Jones.
Jermaine Jones?
Maine Jones.
No way. I didn't know that.
Yep.
Oh, wow. There you go. There you go. All right. Let's get to this Temple coaching search that we talked about. Again, thank you to all of you who listened over the weekend to Sunday's special edition of The Scoop. So we're 4 days into this search to replace Stan Drayton. We will continue to remind you all that we're going to post the latest information that we have over on our football board, our football message board, which is for alscoop.com subscribers. I think we can at least feel comfortable saying, which is out there. These are names that are out there. As of today, we're still hearing that Elijah Robinson and Jeff Nixon, the defensive and offensive coordinators at Syracuse, are both interested in the job. And we know that a lot of people are going to bat for Elijah Robinson. So again, Elijah Robinson, former defensive line coach under Matt Rule at Temple, and went with them to Baylor for a year before he went over to Texas A&M. Jeff Nixon was at Temple back in 2006 under Al Golden. So his time at Temple was a lot shorter, a lot longer ago, but Jeff Nixon's got some NFL experience. Kyle and I were talking about this, yesterday, Kyle, and that like a lot of people You watched the video of what Fran Brown said, where I think people read his quotes and are like, "Oh, he's trying to deny this." And again, I think the spirit of it is a sitting head coach is probably not going to outright say, "Oh yeah, both my coordinators who have had a hand in probably building half of the 35 verbal commitments that we have right now, they're maybe interested in leaving." But you watched the video and you said it wasn't like that much of like a confrontational or like
No,
no, they're not interested. It wasn't like
no,
that,
I
right?
think it was pretty much just very clearly a head coach, like putting that out there for recruiting purposes. Of, hey, oh, my guys aren't going anywhere. At one point, he even says, like, I know you other coaches are telling recruits that our coaches are going anywhere, but they're not. Like, he even at one point said, like, if Elijah does go, I hope he, gets his bag. I hope everything works out the way he wants. The confrontational part was later on. Fran Brown then challenged a reporter to a kickboxing contest.
Which is
So
just amazing.
there was some confrontation. It was just towards the end. But no, I thought that was one of the situations where the quote reads a lot worse than the actual intent. I think he just took it as Fran Brown. Why put it out there that, yeah, my two coordinators are actively pursuing this job, and then they don't get the job, and then I basically just like shot myself in the foot recruiting wise for no reason. A perfectly fair response.
How sad are we for Declan and Johnny and Ryan and Colin that they didn't get to cover Fran Brown?
Fran Brown, one of the Mount Rushmore of characters of Temple athletics.
Yeah,
That's it for sure.
yeah, absolutely. Kyle, I'll throw this over to you. You were how old were you in 2006? You didn't cover Jeff Nixon.
I was 17 years old in
There you go.
2006. I had not. I was working at Waterloo Gardens.
I,
Nice.
I love your story about the ponies at Waterloo
I hate
Gardens.
those ponies. I think we talk about this once a year. I
Yeah.
despise those miniature ponies. Lethal Weapon and Chester.
But the Christmas decorations were pretty. We missed them around now, but
That's
maybe
nice.
not.
I had to shovel shit at that place for a year.
So again, Elijah Robinson from Camden started with Joe Wilson, went on to Penn State, and I think has the backing of a lot of former players for whatever that is worth. And again, I've just talked to way too many people to know. I trust my reporting on this that he is most definitely interested in the job. Like I've told people on our message boards, doesn't mean that he's going to get hired. Doesn't mean he's going to be the final candidate. But I think if Elijah Robinson does not end up as the head coach at Temple, it means either that Arthur Johnson. I'd be shocked if Arthur Johnson didn't interview him again, but if he doesn't end up at Temple, it's not for lack of interest on his part. Same with Jeff Nixon. So let's talk about the merits of these guys again. In Elijah, you have a guy who was here at Temple when things were really good, and he's coached a lot of good players, a high level recruiter. We've been told by a lot of people that Arthur Johnson, and this is not hard to surmise. He knows that he has to get this hire right. He knows that he's made his share of mistakes. We've heard that there's probably not going to be a big internal search committee. I think there is going to be a search firm that he's going to be using, and I'm sure Elijah will be one of the names that does turned up, and Arthur, I'm sure, will do his own research on this. But we'll talk about the merits of these guys. Kyle, between Elijah and Jeff Nixon, again, you got a guy in Jeff Nixon who's an offensive coordinator. He's worked with Matt Rule. Both these guys are in some way, shape, or form from the Matt Rule tree. Jeff Nixon has some NFL experience. Been one of the things I was going to talk about just a second ago, and I lost track. Arthur apparently wants to or is believed to be prioritizing head coaching experience. I'm not saying that he is definitely going to hire a sitting head coach. Now, in Elijah's case, his only head coaching experience came when he was the interim head coach when things were chaotic, when they fired Jimbo Fisher. Whether he should or should not be prioritizing head coaching experience, we can argue about that, and people have their opinions on that. But talking about the merits of these guys, Kyle, if you were choosing, if you're Arthur Johnson, it's like a week from now, and you were choosing between Elijah Robinson and Jeff Nixon, who would you go with?
I personally would go with Elijah Robinson just because I think Temple in 2006 is a lot different than Temple in 2024. And Jeff Nixon's 1 year here doesn't necessarily, I don't necessarily buy that as like, okay, he knows what it means to be successful here because, he wasn't here for when they turned things around. That's not to say that he's not a viable candidate. I mean, like you said, he has 13, 14 years of NFL experience. He's coached, I think, 3 different position groups at the NFL level. I think he's coached wide receivers, running backs, and tight ends. He's kind of done it all on offense. And they're really they had that offense kind of humming up there at Syracuse. I mean, it helps when you have Kyle McCord up there, but he's also gotten a lot of production out of guys at Temple either had committed or was very firmly in on before, like Trevor Pena and LaQuint Allen, like guys from South Jersey are really succeeding up there in that offense. So like I think he's a guy that is probably at that point in his career where you go, okay, it's his time to be a head coach. But with Elijah, he knows exactly what it takes to win here. He was here during those successful years, 2014, 2015, 2016. He was then at Baylor for 1 year, made such an impact on that region as a recruiter that he gets on Texas A&M's radar under Jimbo Fisher almost immediately. And they, like they do with most things at Texas A&M, back up the Brinks truck to him and he jumps ship. I think he's just as good of a coach as you might find with the Fran Browns. I think recruiting wise, him and Fran are pretty much neck and neck.
Yeah.
I think Elijah Robinson, if you hired him, would bring back some of the NFL alumni from Temple that have maybe not been involved except to every time that there's a national game to tweet what happened to Temple. Like I can name like 10 guys that went to Temple, got degrees from Temple, played in the NFL from Temple, who don't tweet about Temple whatsoever until Temple loses to SMU on a Thursday or something. And then it's, man, what they do to my program. Well, you haven't been here. I think Elijah would help with that a lot. I think I think Elijah makes almost too much sense in my mind. Like I think he is, if you were the type of person that said, why didn't they hire Fran Brown in 2021? You're going to think to yourself, why didn't they hire Elijah Robinson in 2024 if he doesn't get the job? I think he's pretty much a carbon copy of what you would have expected to get from Fran.
Yeah. We'll have more on the coaching search in the mailbag. And of course, we're not done talking about this unless the search gets wrapped up in the next few days, which I certainly don't think it will, but we're going to be talking more about this. I will, again, encourage people, if you have not subscribed yet to owlscoop.com, you really should. Again, that's where we're posting updated premium information. There's another candidate that we're not going to talk about here that is potentially in the mix that might make some sense for Temple. So head over to owlscoop.com. If you scroll down, you can click on that link to subscribe. We will promise you that it's going to be worth the money that you pay to subscribe. We're going to continue to post the latest information that we have there, and we'll talk more about this in the mailbag. We'll talk briefly about Friday's game. It might be Friday morning as you're listening to this. Temple has 2 more games left, starting with Friday night's game at UTSA. They're an interesting team. They're 5-5 overall, 3-3 in the league. Haven't lost at home yet this season. They have a win over Memphis a couple weeks ago, but their defense isn't great. James Della Pesca talked earlier this week about how he feels like they can get some stuff done against their passing defense, which is ranked 13th in the American. They've allowed 23 passing touchdowns. Only Tulsa has been worse in that category. They're coming off a 48-27 win over North Texas, which is the team that Temple, of course, plays next Saturday after Thanksgiving in the season finale. And in that 48-27 win, they set a school record for total yards in the game, 681 total yards, 302 on the ground. Their quarterback, a Colorado transfer with a familiar last name, Owen McCown, the son of longtime NFL quarterback Josh McCown. It's a lefty. Again, started off at Colorado before transferring to UTSA. Went 29 of 43 last week for 379 yards, 2 touchdowns. It was his 4th 300-yard game of the season. Also had 88 yards on the ground. It's got close to 500 yards on the ground this season. So we know that dual threat guys have not been easy for Temple to defend this season. We will add this in terms of a roster update. You will not see Landon Morris in the game Friday night. We've been able to confirm that he is not making the trip to UTSA. And we were also told by multiple sources this week that he has quit the team as one of the guys who took the news pretty hard. Now, again, we'll see. We're in this kind of nether region of time where guys might take this news hard. They might look to transfer. I can't confirm that Landon has Kyle, when does you reminded listeners about this, which is good. 30-day window opens for student athletes who want to transfer now because of a coaching change. Could he conceivably put his name in the portal tomorrow because of that?
Yeah. So the way it works, this is my understanding, is once it became like official at Temple, dismissed Andre, and that opened up the 30-day period, which is going to overlap with the normal transfer portal. And then it's still normal transfer portal rules, which is Kyle Gallus, decide I'm going to leave. I submit my intention to leave to Temple Compliance. They have 48 hours to officially enter me into the transfer portal. It might still be like legitimately just logistics wise that maybe that doesn't happen for a couple more days, or it happens next week, or they wait till the transfer portal itself opens up for whatever reason. But yeah, like he can enter right now if he wanted to.
Yeah.
For what it's worth, he is still listed on the roster.
Yeah.
To be fair, there's also like 3 players on their roster that left the team mid-season that are still on the roster, so I wouldn't necessarily
we'll see.
worry about that.
I know they had high hopes for him. 16 catches for 251 yards and a touchdown. He missed one game with an injury?
But that sounds right, yeah.
Yeah. So not quite the season they had in mind for him, but still what might have otherwise been a building block for the future. Again, we will see what happens if he likes the new hire. Maybe he doesn't leave. We'll see. But again, something to keep an eye on. He will not be playing Friday. And as of now, again, we've been told by multiple people that we trust that he intends to leave the program. But again, we'll see on Monday.
Real quick on that point.
Yeah.
It's not unprecedented for somebody to enter the portal or announce their intention to leave and then come back once the new coach comes in. I mean, you saw with Dwan Mathis.
Yep.
Like, they can very much, might not be the best, example, best sample, but like, yeah, you could very much just walk that back.
Yeah. So on Monday at noon, instead of Stan Drayton, we got Everett Withers, who had been the defensive coordinator this year. Before that, he was Stan Drayton's chief of staff. He's been a head coach before and talked, about how much Stan means to him and how he's been impressed by some of the leaders on this team. You'll hear here just a small portion of Monday's press conference. I asked Stan, just hard habit to break there, asked Everett Withers about when he found out about the news. And then I asked him just kind of point blank, like, hey, can the next guy be successful at Temple? And I think his answer was a pretty good one. He was pretty measured, paused a couple of times, and but gave, I think, a really, really good and measured and insightful answer that we will play for you here right now.
How are the players doing? You've been through something similar before. You know that there's humanity to this. How are just some of what we saw on social media, there was like an outpouring above for Stan. How are the players handling this?
I think they're doing remarkably well. We've got some kids that are very mature on our football team. We've got some young kids, but we've got some mature kids on our football team. And they understand this is a great sport, but a tough business. And that's what it is. It's a tough business. And they're part of that business now because of the transfer portal. So guys are making decisions and those type things. So, but our kids are doing really well.
When did you find out?
I was in with a recruit yesterday afternoon, and I was told I need to go to a staff meeting.
Given the way things are structured right now, for the next head coach, is this a place where somebody can succeed given the infrastructure and everything around the program?
I think across the group of 5 world in athletics, there needs to be people sitting down at each one of these universities and decide how much you want to invest in winning. Revenue sharing is coming. How much of that will keep you relevant? How much will you be able to put together in collectives and NIL space and that type of stuff? What are you willing to do to be relevant and to win in today's climate in college athletics? We know what the Power Four is doing, but are there enough group of 5 teams willing to do the things that need to be done? Because there's a lot of things that need to be done. Players are getting paid today, and that ain't going away. So we've let that toothpaste out of the tube. We can't put it back. So how do we get with the times and make a decision structurally within our level of football on how to get this done so you remain relevant? So I think every school, not just Temple, there's a lot of schools that have to ask those questions.
All right, before we get to Temple men's and women's hoops here, close this out. in the interest of time. We're just all predicting a Temple loss for Friday. Do we think at all that they have enough juice in them to respond and say, let's go? I don't want to say shock the world. UTSA is 5-5, but they're a very good offensive team. I just don't see it. And no disrespect to the guys on the team. I do not see them winning on the road down at the Alamo Dome.
No,
don't see it happening.
I don't really see it happening. I know, like we talked about, like the midseason firings and like the records leading up to it when ECU fired their head coach, but I think that record's gonna even back out this weekend.
Yeah.
Declan, you want to say something?
No, I don't have anything to say.
Declan's still pissed.
I don't have anything to say.
I'm just
Jesus Christ.
I just want to I want to air that out. I want to see if you're angry and you want us to talk it out. We're here. We can allot time to talk it out.
No, the time for talk is past. My 2 weeks notice are in.
It's
gone from 2 games to 2 episodes to 1 episode to now 3 episodes.
Nah.
He's giving us Robin Gibb vibes right now. No, I don't.
No.
I don't.
No, I don't think Temple really has a chance here. Although, like, yeah, no. I mean, I think it's gonna be like a type of game where they put up stats and they lose.
Yeah.
Like, I think you'll see coaches like really trying to put performances out there on paper, on film to interview for their next jobs, but no, I'm not expecting anything.
Yeah, Chris Woods will be taking over as defensive coordinator. DJ Woodbury did say he's probably the best best coach I've had on Tuesdays. So he'll be calling plays. He has a close relationship with Everett Withers. So we'll see what happens there. Let's talk some Temple men's basketball. The distraction of the Hysier Miller story notwithstanding, Temple has a couple games this weekend up at Connecticut at Mohegan Sun in the Hall of Fame tip-off. They're coming off a 72-69 loss up at Boston College last Friday, something that was kind of lost in the midst of our emergency pod on Sunday with Stan Drayton getting fired. So Florida State's 4-1. Another team like Boston College that was not given a whole lot of respect in the ACC preseason poll for whatever it's worth, but they're 4-1. They're coming off a 79-61 win over Hofstra. The thing to remember about the Seminoles is that they've got a big lineup. They're led scoring-wise by a player that might be familiar to some Temple fans. I think Temple recruited Jameer Watkins when Aaron McKee was at Temple. About 6'7", 6'8", from Trenton Catholic. So Jameer Watkins had 17 in the win. He's their leading scorer. And then the next day they will play a UMass team that's 1-3. Their lone win came over a New Hampshire team that has an assistant coach in Louis Guzman, former Temple point guard and former Temple grad assistant. Emmanuel Okpomo is up at New Hampshire and starting there. So UMass beat them for their lone win. Now, in UMass, you're also going to see a familiar face. Razul Diggins is their leading scorer, the point guard from Archbishop Wood that a lot of Temple fans wanted to see them recruit around the time they were recruiting Hysier Miller. He's the leading scorer up at UMass, averaging about 17 points per game. We're going to have coverage of those games. Colin Schofield and Ryan Mack will be up there for the Temple News. They're also going to be up there for us as well. Let's take a look at Florida State and what Temple's facing on Friday night. I think again, it's hard to kind of get a good pulse on anybody this early in the season, but I think the ACC could be really good this year. But we talked about BC, and I think, Adam Fisher was made available on Tuesday and talked about, hey, like, there are no moral victories. We could have and should have beaten this team. And now we're going up against Leonard Hamilton on Friday, Frank Martin on Saturday, UMass. But the challenge, as I see it with Florida State, that anybody could see is the size, the rebounding. Leonard Hamilton has always kind of tried to have long, rangy guards, big guys, athletic guys. And when Aaron McKee was here, he talked a lot about maybe not a lot, but enough about like using Florida State as a bit of a benchmark. So a tough game as I see it for Temple as they continue to get Elijah Gray incorporated into things, whatever Muhammad Keita can get you. But rebounding could be an issue Friday night against the Seminoles, I would think, Kyle.
Yeah, and to your point, I mean, when Aaron was here, the whole thing was we want to talk about depth and being able to roll out these different lineups. I mean, Florida State will go 10, 11 deep, even so far this year. You talked about Watkins. Watkins is not the most efficient shooter in the world, I'd say. I mean, he shoots like 43% from the field, 20% from three, only 62% from free throw, from the free throw line, but he gets to the line so much. I mean, I think as a team, they're number 31 in the nation in free throw attempts. They force a lot of turnovers. They're very long. They're number 5 in the nation at 19.8 turnovers per game. it's an interesting matchup for Temple. I'm just even curious, like who guards Watkins
Mhm.
on this. Like things like that are just interesting to me because yeah, he's a forward, but they're going to run a lot of the offense to him. I don't know if that becomes a Steve Settle situation. We'll have to see. The last time Jameer Watkins played Temple, he had a pretty good game. He had 14 points against them two seasons ago in Aaron McKee's final season when he was at VCU. It's the type of win that if you ask me between Boston College and Florida State, who do I think has the chance to become like a good win? If you can somehow beat Florida State, I think they have the talent and the depth to be a little bit better than Boston College will be in a couple months.
All right, let's talk a little bit about this Temple women's team. They're 2-2 after a 14-point loss at Georgetown. They had problems with them last year. They have problems with them this year. They're hosting Drexel Saturday night in their first Big Five game. So this year, of course, is the first year of the Big Five Classic on the women's side. Another rough night for Tiara East. Is this again an example of an opposing team just kind of throwing the kitchen sink at her and trying to force other players to beat her, or did she have open looks that she couldn't knock down here? Again, I know this is, again, they want to win every game, but this was a game that they really wanted to win against a Big East team and came up short. And now, again, Drexel will be a fun game on Saturday. Temple's hoping to get out of that pod and compete for a Big Five title. But let's talk about what went wrong at Georgetown.
We watched the live stats come through and all, and as that was coming in, and honestly, we weren't. I can't tell you when it came to open looks and stuff like that. Kind of going off of what we're seeing off of the box score, and also just what we've seen prior to this game, because this isn't anything new when it comes to our East this season. She's had a rough go of it all season long.
Mhm.
And from what it seems like, it's a lot of pressure on her. She last season, it was a lot of the offense ran through her. She carried that offense, especially when Aaliyah Nelson was struggling. And then as it was going through her, they had Rain Tucker, they had Inez Piper down low. Now they don't have that. Anissa Rivera's had a great season so far, but it feels like they're still trying to find ways to click and go through TR East and then go through the forwards down low. And it feels like that's not working. It feels like it's not clicking. And it's something that it's something you had to worry about with the amount of new players that were coming in, that you had to worry about the flow and them gelling together in the early parts of the season. And Georgetown, a big opponent, is it's nothing to like sniff at. Like they're good. Like they're a great team, and I mean they like you mentioned, they did it to them last year too. So
Real quick, we should mention that. So you mentioned Anissa Rivera. She started against Georgetown in place of Amaya Oliver, who had been playing well so far. And Anissa Rivera had 16 points and 12 rebounds. Amaya Oliver missed the game due to what Diane Richardson told me is a minor injury. Had a chance to talk to Diane briefly this week, but Amaya Oliver, she tells me, is expected to play against Drexel. So should note that they were without, an important transfer there.
And I will say that this is something that like with Amaya Oliver being out, I mean, Julissa Molina is someone that they've seen as someone that they expected to take a step forward, and it really hasn't seemed like she's done that. I mean, she has played 19 minutes. She struggles with turnovers. She struggles with off-ball movement, and rebounding is she can rebound at some points, but it feels like that, like her coming over here from the Netherlands, it feels like it hasn't fully like clicked yet, and it feels like that her progression hasn't been what they've wanted to see. And that's just me like eyeballing it and going off of what I see. I haven't obviously talked to Richardson or anyone on the staff like specifically when it comes to that, but it feels like she's someone that they expected to take a step forward with, Inez Piper and Rain Tucker leaving, and it feels like that just hasn't happened.
You're not going to win games when your star player goes 2 for 17 from the field, but I mean the whole team just struggled once for 16 from 3, and their first 3 I don't think came till the fourth quarter. So I think the lone bright spot would be seeing somebody like Savannah Curry come off the bench and start to find her rhythm a little bit. She had a steal. She looked good, but Amaya Oliver being hurt this early in the year is kind of concerning. She had, I think, a boot on her left foot when I was in the Panda Express line the other day. So, that's real journalism there.
Back.
That's real journalism.
Back.
So you worry about that, especially Johnny, like you correctly pointed out, Julissa Molina has just struggled this year. She's got more turnovers than points on the season. So, it just feels like this team last year also struggled in the non-conference schedule, especially to a team like Georgetown. They had a big home loss last year. So the Drexel game, I don't think you're as worried about it, considering LaSalle beat Drexel by 30 points?
Something like that. Yeah.
Something like that. It was, one of Drexel's biggest losses in its program history. So hopefully that's a little bit of a get right game en route to, playing LaSalle the following week. But there are definitely, I think, concerns in that front or that back court with how poorly they've shot to begin the year.
We'll have coverage of that game this weekend and more Temple women's basketball talk.
I have an
next
important
week.
question.
Russ?
Why is Johnny's Zoom Buddy the Elf?
Yeah, did you do that? I was gonna ask you, and then the
Legitimately
whole
not me.
ESPN story dropped, and I never really got a chance to ask you. So, did you do that?
I don't. That's the
You're a
magic,
terrible
that's the
liar.
magic of Christmas, bro.
You're
That's
a
it.
terrible
Good
terrible
Lord.
liar.
That's I don't know.
So when you were trying to make me the host, and it took you an extra like 2 minutes, is that because you were naming me Buddy the Elf?
But I don't know.
John just pecking on the keyboard. B
Use your,
D.
use your imagination, man.
Giggling to himself as he was doing it too.
I was wondering why it took so long.
We gotta be happy
This is
about
gonna get
something
'em.
right now, man. So might as well get into the holidays.
No, I'm not judging. I'm just
I know.
saying, like, what possessed you to do that?
If the man was able to eat spaghetti and syrup, then he can be part of our podcast.
Did you just come up with that, or is that like you heard that? Is that like a quote from something?
Have you seen Elf?
I've seen Elf, but I don't remember that quote. I didn't.
There's,
know
it's
that
not really a quote. Remember he put syrup on spaghetti.
Maybe the real elf was the friends we made along the way.
Maybe.
That was my favorite part of the movie.
Johnny, are you just one of those kids that like slip through the cracks? Like you just didn't experience these things growing up?
I haven't watched Elf in like 6 years.
Oh, we
I'm
gotta
sorry
change
that
that.
I'm sorry that I
We got.
I didn't.
that.
I don't remember every scene from the movie.
We'll talk a little bit later as we get closer to Christmas about how you just raged against Christmas Vacation. You're like, I don't get this plot line here. The
That
neighbor.
wasn't a good movie.
Mm,
I just wasn't a
That'll-
fan.
that'll play well.
mm.
We think of
Hmm.
Polar Express.
I think it's a little creepy, but
It is
it's an
creepy,
iconic
but it's wonderful.
movie. So
Yeah.
you
I'm
gotta
sorry.
tolerate it.
Iconic?
Iconic in Christmas sense, not an iconic movie.
I'm with them. That's a staple.
That's
We can debate. We have a month and 4 days. Let's not rush it. We can debate this over the next.
Yeah. We got time.
We'll do another
Alright,
bracket.
we got time. Right, let's hop into the mailbag here where we have a lot more to get to, a lot of questions about what's going on with basketball, the coaching search, and everything in between, as he does each week. Mike Greenspan of Greenspan and Greenspan Injury Lawyers provides his weekly tip for staying safe on the road. So we'll hear from Mike here and then get to the mailbag after that.
Did you know that some of the most dangerous times to be out on the road are not during the day, but instead between 11 p.m. and 6 a.m.? Why is that? Well, take a look at the news. Do you notice when you see the reports of these terrible crashes, they're often occurring at night? Why? Because that's when you'll encounter more often drunk drivers or drowsy drivers or people who are just doing things they shouldn't be doing. And that's why you see these wrong way collisions, people crossing over a double yellow line. Temple fans, be safe. If you can, try to avoid traveling between the hours of 11 p.m. and 6 a.m. Arrive alive.
All right, thank you to Mike and his sponsorship of the Scoop each week. Let's get to the mailbag here. First question is Greg JC17 on Twitter is his Twitter handle here. The question is, with the instability of the football program, would it be wise to try to extend Adam Fisher to a longer-term contract, in parentheses, with a sizable buyout? Hopefully keep it isolated to one program, especially with the Nova and Miami jobs possibly opening after this season or next season. Sure, it would make sense to try to extend Adam Fisher. We'll see what happens as the season goes on here. Obviously, last season, they weather a 10-game losing streak. Then they end up falling one game short of the NCAA tournament. So if Temple could potentially be as good as that staff thinks they could be this year, yeah, you probably want to try to retain them. Lord knows what's going to happen at Villanova. We know that fans are upset with Kyle Neptune. He was always going to be compared to Jay Wright. On top of that, they have just not been playing well. Now they just beat the pants off of Penn, but the fans there are not happy with the direction of the program. They're certainly not happy with the return on their investment when it comes to NIL. But so who knows what they'll do there with Miami if Jim Larinaga retires. You've got the connection there. He is very, very close with Adam Fisher. So yeah, we'll see. I don't know what the market is going to be for Adam Fisher. We have to see what type of season he has first. But yeah, if they start getting into that upper tier, if they're in second or third place in the conference standings heading into the conference tournament, and you think they have a chance to be an NIT team or an NCAA tournament team, then yeah, why not?
Here's the only thing I'll say about that is I think timing wise, especially with ESPN article and stuff like that coming out today, I think it might make more sense later on in the season. Plus, you get further on with whether or not you think the staff will continue that trajectory. But if Nova and Miami are coming, I don't think it matters if Temple extended Adam Fisher.
Yeah.
Like if Temple extended Adam Fisher tomorrow, it's not like he's gonna be like, oh, I'm sorry, I can't pursue this other job because of that extension. Like
They'll have the
that
money
would
to buy him out.
it wouldn't necessarily lock him down.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Next question comes from our friend Glenn. Twitter handle is Al72 on Twitter. With a new president now in place, would it be a shock for Arthur Johnson to be replaced? I assume that would be bad if that happened because it would take them much longer to hire a coach. Well, look, unless there's something we don't know, I think Arthur Johnson is going to be able to hire the next football coach at Temple. I understand where the speculation comes from. New president and John Fry. Could he be upset with the direction of the athletic department? He is, and I'm sure will continue to meet with key athletic stakeholders. And I'm sure he's aware of the dissatisfaction with the department right now, but I can't tell you, Glenn, that we know of anything that's imminent with Arthur Johnson.
Sorry, I would say if he was going to be terminated in the next, 7 to 10 days or whatever, he wouldn't have been allowed to fire Stan Drayton.
Yeah. It's a pretty fair assumption there. So,
you know what? Crazier things have happened at Temple, right? I've never put it past Temple to Temple something, but that would be surprising.
Good God.
Yeah. But understand where Glenn's coming from with the question. Next question here comes from Twitter, the handle ProBetter4. Do you think Arthur Johnson is more likely to hire someone with head coaching experience this time around after the P4 assistant thing failed with Drayton? Something we were talking about before. Good question. Again, if you're a Temple fan, you could either be half excited or half pessimistic by the conditions under which Arthur Johnson is making this decision. Like I said earlier, he knows he has to get it right. And either that's going to bring out the best in him or the worst in him. I think there's a candidate on our message board that we've talked about. Again, you got to subscribe to Al Scoop to get that information. That might make sense. But I think if he goes out and makes a quick move to hire someone like Elijah Robinson, I don't think in the court of public opinion, whatever that's worth, I think a lot of the Temple fan base is going to say, that's great. This makes sense. Now, again, the players, the former players with the means to give, I hate to say it, they have to put their money where their mouth is. And maybe they won't donate to NIL, but like that building needs some upgrades, training table stuff. They have needs there. I think he could inject some life into the program with a hiring of Elijah Robinson. So I think there's this pendulum that swings back and forth. And so, yeah, sure, he could be thinking, wow, I tried to go with a guy from Texas who seemed to be an assistant that just needed a chance, but he didn't have head coaching experience. And now he might do the overcorrection of saying, I need someone with head coaching experience. The pool of guys that would be like a logical step up that you would feel good about very much narrows. They're out there, but someone with head coaching experience who is a proven commodity in his grand sense is just not, they're not coming to Temple. There are a couple of guys that make sense, including one like I keep teasing to on our message board, but it's hard to say. Kyle, what do you think? I mean, what is your gut telling you? Do you think Arthur tries to way overcorrect here and says, I have to have a guy that's been a previous head coach?
I don't think it's a have to. I think my gut tells me if that's his preference to go for a head coach and as a correction, I don't think it's going to be so like it's a binary thing. Either he's a head coach and I hire him or he's not and he's not considered. Like, I don't think it's that. I think to your point, I think there's a handful of sitting head coaches that would be interested in the job. You're not going to go and hire somebody from the Mountain West or the American or the Big Ten that's a current head coach. Obviously, you're going to have to hire somebody from a lower level, and this would probably be the highest that they've coached, or you have to hire a retread. And you just saw with FAU hired Tom Herman, who was the Texas head coach, who had won the American at Houston, had been very successful in this conference, and they fired him after 22 games. Like, that's how colossal of a disaster that was. So, like, just because somebody has head coaching experience and has had success at their previous stops, even if it's at the same level or a higher level, obviously it's not guaranteed they're going to be successful. So I think it's more likely that Arthur Johnson focuses on somebody that probably makes more sense conventionally, like regional recruiting background, whether he has Temple connections or he's from here. I think that's more likely than it was last time, but I don't think head coach or assistant coach is a deal breaker one way or the other.
Kind of wild, by the way, that, you know, Stan and Tom are pretty good friends. He talked about how their wives are close, and Stan beats Tom. Tom gets fired. Stan wins and still gets fired, and just worlds colliding. Dogs and cats living together. Mass hysteria. I wouldn't expect you to know that quote. That's from Ghostbusters. I wouldn't expect you to know that one.
Little obscure B-side movie.
You're a big Ghostbuster guy. You've always said that.
No,
What?
Johnny, how do you hum the theme song?
I'm not gonna hum the theme song.
Do you
We've
know
already had enough.
you don't know the Ghostbusters theme song?
Who are you gonna call? Ghostbusters.
There we go.
That was really good.
I know the.
There we go. That was
That should
good.
be our theme song for the
That was
week.
good.
Thank you.
Johnny 10 seconds ago. I'm not gonna hum the theme song. Johnny 8 seconds ago. Here's me
Well,
humming.
Here's my
you
best
know,
Ray Parker Jr.
You persuaded me. It got stuck in my head. I had to get
Are
it.
you afraid of ghosts?
I ain't afraid of no ghosts.
Damn it. Jesus.
Are you guys too young for when they used to have like the high C in the grocery store that was what's the name of the green guy from Ghostbusters? The green alien. Or the green ghost.
Slimer.
Slimer? Was it Slimer?
It might have been Slimer.
Slimer. They used to have Slimer high C, so he would just be on like the side of the high C as you went to the grocery store.
sounds
Ghostbusters 2 was
delicious.
a wild movie.
Never saw it.
Yeah, I'll take you up.
I still liked it, but I'm a sucker for a sequel. If you can give me like 4 or 5 jokes to laugh at, I'll be fine. But anyway, Temple fan Al betting odds for the top candidates too soon. I don't know.
Oh, I get what you're scoffing at.
Yeah.
Oh, I get it now.
I mean, I don't even know how to set odds. What would you set are we just looking at Elijah and Jeff Nixon?
I will say Elijah Robinson plus 150.
Yeah.
Jeff Nixon plus 150. Field minus 110.
Nick Saban
You
plus
think? Wait. So you think?
For people like me, sorry to John,
No, you're good.
what is walk me through what plus 150 really means and how that's set.
So like plus money is where like it depends on if the lower the plus, like the more favorable it is. So like if it's plus, it's still like it's not fully favored, but it's more likely to happen. If it's minus, then it's really likely to happen in favor. It's like
Right.
minus.
But when I'm saying plus 150, I'm saying odds are if Elijah Robinson or Jeff Nixon got the job, that is less likely to happen than just somebody else getting the job. Like Field means anybody else.
But then it quite literally means if you bet $100, you make 150, right? That's the
Right.
plus 150.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you think Robinson and Nixon are the like same chance? You don't think it's
Yeah, that's
I give
fair.
the edge to
Maybe
Elijah.
it's plus 145, 150. I think Jeff Nixon is very firmly interested in this job and has just as good of a chance as anybody else. I'd be surprised if he doesn't get interviewed.
Yeah.
And he's 10 years older. He coached in the NFL for a long time. He has Power 5 experience. Like, I think he's a very viable candidate.
Yeah, both we know way too well by now that both guys, as of now, again, things could change. Somebody could have a conversation with them to scare them off, or anything can happen, as we know. But both guys have kind of been trying to build their respective coalitions and reaching out. So they're both very interested.
It's like a lot of these things that come up in interviews is also beyond just the actual candidates. What type of staff would you be able to put together? What would your recruiting plan be? At today's day and age in 2024, it might be, do you have NIL backers? Like,
Yep.
There's more that comes into it. So I don't know if one of those coaches has a better answer to those questions than the other.
Temple Alzalum 1620 from the message board. Do we see a head coach hired before the December transfer window? So again, as Kyle mentioned, players who are here at Temple can transfer now. The head coaching change opens up a 30-day window for players. So, by December 9th is when the next national transfer window opens up. Look, I hope for Temple's sake, if they don't have a coach hired by December 9th, then what are you doing? Like, why did you, one of the reasons why now Arthur Johnson has not come out and said this after the decision was made. Like I said, I reached out. I'm sure other people reached out to see if Arthur would be willing to speak. He has not, unless I missed something, didn't get back to us, has not made himself available to reporters. So, and now during a coaching search, I will say no athletic director is really going to talk to reporters throughout the duration of a coaching search, but didn't get to him before that. But had we would have said, like, do you have an ideal date in mind? I'm sure he might have talked around and said, no, we just want to get the best candidate. But if they don't have somebody hired by December 9th, then what are you doing? Why did you try to get out in front of this? One of the reasons I would have to think is that you want to get a head start on your competition. If they don't have a head coach hired by December 9th, I think it's a bad look. Similar question along those lines. Lazy Goat, this is from the message board, right? Question number one, what do you make of the fact that Arthur Johnson has not made himself available to the press or made any statements regarding the coaching situation, the coaching search, other than the press release announcing that Stan Drayton has been fired. This seems so short-sighted and even arrogant, especially given that much of the fan base seems to have little faith in him as the athletic director. Shouldn't he have made himself available like other ADs who have fired their coaches to answer questions, explain the search process and timeline going forward, outline a strategic plan going forward with the football program? Why should the fan base have any faith in him or the process to hire the right head coach or to explain how things will be different going forward? WTF. Now, I will say, like I just said, I don't expect Arthur to talk during the search, but if you want to compare, I think Temple should have better aspirations, and the guy's name is escaping me, but ECU's athletic director, when they made their change mid-season, he got out and spoke with reporters and did talk and outlined, like, here's exactly what we're looking for. Do I think it would have served them well to do that? Yes. So we did, like I said, we did make an effort to try to reach out to him. He has not gotten back to us. I don't think, again, that he's gotten back to anybody else. Maybe I missed something, but so lazy
Ball
go.
State,
Yes.
Sorry, Ball State did it after they fired their head coach. Like, there are definitely times that I don't think FAU did it after they fired Herman, but like most of the time, I feel like you get a press conference.
The question makes a lot of sense here. Can't really argue with anything there. Again, Arthur Johnson could have gone out and had this like dynamic press conference, but a dynamic press conference doesn't mean that you're going to hire the right coach. But do I think it would have served him well? Yes, I agree. I think for now that ship has sailed because now he should be into a search. So now I don't expect him to speak with reporters, but who the hell knows? We could get an email tomorrow saying that Arthur Johnson will be made available in the Fox Giddis room. Question number 2 from Lazy Goat. Isn't it imperative to hire a new coach before the transfer portal opens and players and more recruits start jumping ship en masse? Isn't this the justification for firing Drayton with 2 games remaining in the season so we can have a new coach in place to deal with the roster and start putting together a staff ASAP? Yep. Hand in hand with what we were just talking about. Yes and yes.
Yeah. My completely uninformed guess is that there will be an announcement of a new coach early the week of the 2nd.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think like next week with Thanksgiving, all this, I think you'll start seeing interviews early on, but I think it's impractical to expect to get somebody on campus during that. And then regular season ends that weekend.
Next question here comes from the screen name Delmar PR. Any thoughts on Henry Burris as a candidate? He is currently the co-offense coordinator and quarterbacks coach for Florida A&M, an interesting candidate who proved to be a winner in the CFL. However, his time at Temple was prior to the Golden success, etc. Do you think hiring Burris would excite the fan base and help bring in NIL donor money? Does his CFL success versus not having NFL success help him or hurt him with recruiting? My top choice would still be Elijah Robinson, but do you think maybe bringing in Burris as an offensive coordinator, I guess he was saying, do you think maybe bringing in Burris as an offensive coordinator might help? I know that, and I apologize here, Delmar PR. I think that Henry mentioned in my interview with him for the Scoop that I think he mentioned that, yeah, sure, I'd like to coach at Temple one day. I don't get the sense that there's any momentum building there with Henry right now. I also get the sense that Henry is pretty happy where he is at Florida A&M. He just moved his family down there. Now, granted, families can move with the drop of a hat. Could he be a candidate to be offensive coordinator for the next head coach who comes in? Potentially. I don't know. Everybody has their own coaching trees. So I think that Henry's doing what Henry should be doing, is that he has played. He's been a very, very successful football player. He's a great dude, down to earth guy, super, super smart, very well liked by fans, by his former players, very well respected. Came back here to be the commencement speaker at Klein's commencement. Declan got to spend some time around him, and I love Henry. He's great. I don't get the sense that he is pushing for the job. I don't get the sense that he's really in the mix, but I think he's doing what he should be doing, which is paying his dues right now. And he's at a good HBCU program. And I think he's a really smart guy. I don't think that Temple hiring Henry is imminent, but, maybe a guy to keep an eye on down the line. We'll see. A couple more questions to get to here. The Hick is the screen name. This is back to basketball. How are the coaches working to improve perimeter defense? The Hick always fires like multiple questions at us. How are the coaches going to encourage ball movement and gas, perhaps even work the ball into the post? I will say this again. I mean, working the ball into the post looks different every game. Sometimes working the ball in the post means maybe working the ball into someone like Steve Settle. Elijah Gray just played his first game last week. Some games that's going to be a priority. Sometimes it's not. We're 4 games into the season. These aren't like pressing problems right now. It's early in the season. Yes, there's some really good tier 1 basketball programs right now, but I don't know that it's were sounding the alarm bell to say like their perimeter defense is so awful. I think Jameel Brown has actually been a little bit of a better of a perimeter defender
Yeah,
than I think
that was like the first thing that popped out to me was his defense looked a lot better than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah. We also like Lynn Greer isn't even, we're talking about what working the ball into the post. You don't even have your starting point guard yet. Quante Berry is essentially back up. He's holding the fourth down. You have Jamal Mashburn playing a lot more reps and possessions on the ball than he's used to. So I'm sure the coaches are working on all this stuff, but I don't think this is like because of a lack of coaching or just like the players just not being dedicated to. But I will turn this
I will
over to
say,
you.
obviously, super small sample size, and a lot of this is also probably skewed because of Jamal Mashburn's ability to get to the rim. But Temple went from 17th percentile in paint points last year to their 50th now. So they're not all of a sudden world beaters in paint points, but obviously more productive than they were.
Couple more questions to close things out. Diamond and Broad with a three-parter. What are the biggest changes you see Fry making to athletics? Why have so many big-time donors with Temple ties like Mitch Morgan been reluctant to give to NIL? And how worried should we be that Nova and Miami come for Fisher? We've already talked about the Miami and Villanova thing for Adam Fisher. What are the biggest changes you see with John Fry making Temple to Temple athletics? Everybody knows about the op-ed that he penned in the Wall Street Journal, essentially saying we at Drex are glad that we, again, very much paraphrasing, that we don't have football. There's speculation about that. Ultimately, do not know what's going to happen there. I'm sure he knows that he has to take a hard look at football. Yeah. I think any president worth their salt would be doing that. But as much as we know right now is that he's meeting with key athletic stakeholders to really get the lay of the land to find out how to move forward. I cannot speak to, the donation habits of someone like Mitch Morgan, who's been very, very philanthropic otherwise, but I'm sure that's stuff that's being talked about right now. How are we going to move forward with NIL and revenue sharing? Last question here from Fig One, and we mentioned this at the outset of the show. Can you share more intel around the point shaving issue? Is there going to be more news and activity coming out? So Fig One submitted that question before the ESPN.com story came out about Hysier Miller that hit the website at ESPN.com around 2:17 p.m. And federal authorities, again, I'm reading the lead right here. Federal authorities are investigating whether former Temple men's basketball player Hysier Miller bet on his own games and manipulated the outcome of Val's games he played in, according to sources with direct knowledge of the situation. So, and since we started recording, John Fry, speaking of John Fry issued a statement, and I will read it out loud because I realize that some of you, if you're outside the Temple community, I'm sure you could probably see it on Temple's website, but I'll read this statement from John Fry to close out the show. This was what he sent out just about 10, 15 minutes ago. Dear students, colleagues, and alumni, I've been made aware of media reports about a former Temple basketball student athlete detailing a federal investigation into sports wagering activities. While it is disappointing to see Temple mentioned in this context, we know that it is not representative of our athletics program. Intercollegiate athletics is an important component of the Temple experience. It unites our community and is a source of deep pride for our students, alumni, faculty, and staff. We take seriously the integrity of college athletics as well as the education and well-being of our student athletes. Coaches, student athletes, and staff members receive mandatory training on NCAA rules and regulations, including prohibitions on involvement in sports wagering. The key messages are reinforced throughout the year with regular text and email reminders. The university has been aware of these allegations since they were first reported in the media in March 2024. We've been fully responsive and cooperative with the NCAA since the moment we learned of the investigation. While the university has not received any requests for information, from the state or federal law enforcement agencies regarding these allegations, we will cooperate fully should we be contacted. Temple Athletics and our student athletes consistently display a high level of commitment, sportsmanship, and academic achievement. Just yesterday, it was announced that Temple's Department of Intercollegiate Athletics registered a 93% graduation success rate. It was the sixth consecutive year it has compiled a graduation success rate of 90% or above. Temple is one of only 18 football bowl subdivision schools with a graduation success rate of 93% or above and a graduation rate of 77% or higher. I will keep you updated on this matter as future developments occur. Sincerely, John Fry, President. So that is John Fry's official response, and we'll see what happens moving forward. Like I said, never a dull day around here, guys.
No.
So
Can't tell by Declan's reaction right now. Sometimes it is a dull day.
Yeah.
He's out here staring at me.
Something I want to say
Very tired.
real quick before we close out the show. So we'll talk about this more in next week's pod. What we're going to try to do next Saturday, not this coming Saturday, but next Saturday, do a bit of a pregame Temple football show. So next Saturday is going to be kind of a doubleheader. You got Temple closing out its football season against North Texas, and then of course at 4 p.m. up at LaSalle, up North Broad Street. Temple playing at LaSalle. The winner of that game gets to play St. Joe's for the Big Five Classic Championship. We're going to be doing a pregame show at the South Philly Tap Room. Our friend John Longacre owns Owl Scoop, so we'll be sharing more details for you there. Come by and see us. I think there'll be some drink specials at the Tap Room. John's a Temple grad, so it should be fun. Come out, join us. We'll be probably streaming some live show of some sort down there. We'll have more details for you next week on that. Thank you all so much for listening, and we will talk to you soon.